to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write about movies, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
Yeah, you are.
This is true.
Facts. Hashtag facts. All right. And happy Pride, everyone. Evan, you wished us happy Pride off mic, but I want to wish it to us on mic and to all of you listening at home.
Happy Pride, listeners.
Or listening wherever you're from. You might not be at home.
Yeah, you might not be at home. You're in the car. I'm sorry. Unless you like being in the car, in which case, yay.
I mean, sometimes the car is fun.
It is.
I'm a fan of a road trip.
I mean, I drive a stick, so I love it.
Oh, yeah, that you do. That's true. You do. Well, happy Pride. And while we're well-wishing and thanking and all of that jazz, want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
And before we dive into this week's show, we want to tell you about our Patreon. Every week we put out bonus episodes, and for $5 a month, you get access to them as well as voting in monthly polls. And this week, we talked about Spike Lee's Crooklyn for its anniversary, and we had a great conversation. So go check that out if you're a patron and consider joining if you're not. So now, on to the main show. Let's talk about this week's movies. We are going to be talking about the documentary Jim Henson Idea Man and the, perhaps undefinable, maybe thriller, maybe awkward comedy, maybe somewhere in a weird in between. We'll discuss and we'll unpack it.
I think if it had a larger budget, it could have been a thriller.
Yeah. But this Closeness. And we're actually going to be kicking things off with This Closeness, which Dave and I both watched. And this is a film that is written and directed by Kit Zauhar. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I hope I am. And it also stars Kit Zauhar and Zane Pais and Ian Edlund and Jesse Pinnock. And this basically all takes place in one apartment, like one room, essentially. So let me give you the synopsis from the press release. It says Tessa and Ben are staying in Philly for the weekend to attend Ben's high school reunion. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the couple has to rent a room in a stranger's apartment. That stranger is Adam, whose loneliness is immediately obvious to his new guests. Adam quickly becomes an unwilling voyeur to the most private parts of the couple's life. While Ben seeks validation from old classmates, Tessa is left to find her own affection within the confines of the apartment. When Tessa betrays Adam's trust, Adam goes to great lengths to assert his dominance over his home.
Tessa betrays Adam's trust?
Yeah, I guess.
When after the ASMR session where she's like telling Ben that he's weird?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Seemed like she was nurturing her own, fragile ego.
Yeah, pretty much.
There.
Pretty much. Maybe that's the betrayal it's referencing. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so Tessa is she's a big YouTuber doing ASMR videos, and
which was great for me.
Oh my God. I know. Dave, you love them. I was in fucking hell because I hate ASMR with a burning passion.
I don't.
Yeah, not my thing.
I don't love the what was that, Evan?
It's not my thing either.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I don't love the head scratching videos that they were doing, or the shoulder rub that
gotcha.
that Tessa was giving Lizzie. I'm more of a hand movement kind of person.
Like tapping, like the tapping on glass and stuff?
No, not tapping. I'm talking about like moving your hands in the air slowly.
Oh, okay.
Like if you're watching someone do a Reiki session, big ASMR for me.
Okay. All right. I did not know.
Which I know I know a lot of people would think that's fucking dull as shit. And yes, it is. And it's amazing.
Yeah. I'm watching in this scene that you're referring to where Tessa is doing the kind of head scratching, like running her fingers through the hair of Lizzie, who's Ben's high school classmate. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this, but I want that done to me because that feels great to have someone like play with your hair. But watching it, I'm like, I don't understand the appeal. But again, different strokes for different folks. Just it's not my thing.
If you get the tingles, then I mean, here's the
Yeah.
thing. I've been thinking to myself, a lot of people use this to because it like can be for people that ASMR works for. It can be like a big stress reliever,
Yes.
and I just kind of like the tingles, But I thought, you know what though, I do get drowsy a lot when I watch these videos. I really do.
And she says that too, that a lot of people who have insomnia watch her videos. So yeah.
Well, I never really considered that before because I just was like, I just like ASMR. And I've noticed that I've been falling asleep when I watch them. So I was like, I should just like keep notes.
Yes.
So for the last like month or so, I've been like, yep, I've gotten drowsy each time that I've watched one. So this is not about the movie at all, by the way.
It might be fascinating nonetheless and good background, but yeah, not about the movie.
Well,
Let's
already off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is one of the indiest movies that ever indied.
It's very indie.
I mean, this movie couldn't be more low budget if you were like, here's $5, kid, make a movie, It doesn't look bad.
No.
It doesn't sound bad.
No, it doesn't.
Which is like kind of, so Kit Zahar has real people, including herself, I guess, working on this because it looks polished, but given the location, it's not filmed like a play, so you know that it wasn't a play beforehand. It's just super low budge, and I do have to say, I didn't dislike this movie, but I'm not sure what it's about. And every character in this movie sucks. So,
well, that's quite the review.
I know. Yeah. So, yeah, Ben has issues in that he's trapped in his high school days, reminiscing with Lizzie, who is inappropriately ? I would say yes, but we can talk about it. Inappropriately.
She comes on a little strong.
She's inappropriately flirting with him, and Tessa's bothered by the fact that that's all they talk about is their high school days because Tessa was bullied, or she feels like she was bullied. Actually, Lizzie uses the word bullied. I don't know if Tessa does, but
she doesn't.
Yeah, which I think is an interesting tell. But Tessa had like a really bad interaction in high school where she was made fun of for the way she looked. And Lizzie's like, well, who cares now? You're hot now. And she's like, oh, okay, thanks. And so Tessa is, you mentioned her fragile ego. And it's funny because to me, that wasn't so apparent at first. But then as the movie unfolds, you see she definitely has a fragile ego. And then Adam has possibly an imaginary roommate, which I think is funny that Tessa and Ben talk about that he might have an imaginary roommate. They're not really sure. He's a weirdo. He seems very nice, but he is a weirdo, and he's
not like a psycho.
No,
but he is.
But
he pees in jars in his room,
right? But maybe because he doesn't want to interact with them. I don't know. But also,
maybe.
But also, he's like sniffing her underwear when she dropped her underwear from showering, and then he puts it back like he never touched it, and which is very weird. And
did he sniff it?
I thought he did.
Oh,
maybe he just put it up close to his face, which I assumed was sniffing it, but maybe not. Maybe he just wanted to look at it. Yeah. I don't know.
And then he's into mild BDSM because he keeps slapping that woman's ass that he brings home.
Yeah, which was offensive, not because of the BDSM, but because he doesn't really get her consent. Really,
she kind of consents to it, but then she's like, "Okay, that's too hard," and he's like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah. But then he hits her again.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It was very. I mean, I'm sure it was shot to be ambiguous as to what the fuck that was.
Probably, yeah.
But she was a real person. He didn't imagine her because
no.
Tessa did see her leave in the morning.
But yeah, he keeps having these seemingly imaginary phone calls with his roommate, who he says is the one who actually rented out the Airbnb room to them, and that he's with his mother who's like dying or something.
Yeah. Well, one of them is he's leaving a voicemail.
He is.
So that kind of makes me wonder, because if you're crazy and you have an imaginary roommate, do you go to the trouble to leave it imaginary voicemails?
Maybe.
I mean,
he also talked about his roommate in the past tense all the time, which made me think like his roommate was dead or
me too.
Not his roommate anymore. It's not like he's just like moved out or he's with his mom for the time being. But like, no, he's never coming back. So, yeah. But this movie, I will say to its credit, it does look good. It does sound good. It leaves a lot of breadcrumbs, enough for you to like wonder what the hell is really going on, which I appreciate. And also that ending is very abrupt.
And completely, there are 3 things that could have happened there.
There are.
Actually,
let's
4,
talk about
I think.
it.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, this is all building. Tessa and Ben are bickering the whole time, where they keep getting on each other's nerves. They keep, disliking what the other is saying or doing or choices that they're making. And at one point, Ben throws an iced coffee at Tessa because he's pissed and it's gross. And she's like, I'm not cleaning that up. And then they fight about that. And then Adam is hearing this and it's weird. And like they think he's weird. He thinks they're weird, rightfully so, which is kind of interesting. And so they finally go to Ben's high school reunion, which we do not see. We kind of keep seeing like the build up to it and like the going out ahead of time with his friends. And we hear like the aftermath. But then, Ben walks in on Tessa doing kind of an ASMR thing on Adam. And he's very uncomfortable. He thinks like she's trying to like, tease him, like turn him on. And then they have sex because of that, because she's like talking about Adam, like she wants to have sex with him or did have sex with him.
It's the most bizarre thing.
It is. It's very bizarre.
At first, it's like a real fight about you were fucking coming on to him and and then all of a sudden it takes a 180 in the middle of it where she starts saying, no, I did want him. And then that turns him on and they start fucking.
Yes, they do. Because
wait a moment.
That's clearly what they get off on is the fighting.
So, okay. And I was just like, the whole movie has presented their relationship as being on the verge of collapsing because of the fighting. But then it turns out it's all foreplay.
It's foreplay. It turns them on. It's like Phantom Thread. Yeah, it turns them on.
Yeah, but Phantom
it does.
It's a lot more sophisticated than Phantom Thread, let me tell you.
I completely agree. Listen, I love Phantom Thread. I'm just saying the principle, the core premise is kind of the same. But yes, the execution is very different. But yeah, but then at the end, so then Tessa the next morning is like, I want to get the fuck out of here. I want to get out of here before we see Adam. And she's like, Ben, go get the car. Get the car. And he's like, okay. And yeah, and then at the very end, Adam is like rolling around in their sheets that they had sex in, that he heard them having sex in. And then Ben has the car and Tessa's there and he's like, come on, get in the car. Come on. And she's like, looks like she's about to say something. And then it cuts.
Well, it looks like she's about to go back into the apartment.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But also, so Adam climbs into the bed and he's like rolling around. And then I'm wondering if he's imagining all of that happening afterward.
Oh,
but then there's a moment where it shows her in the bed, what she had worn to sleep the night before, even after that. And it's like, wait, is she imagining this? And then it goes to the street and like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is real.
Right.
And like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like, did Adam imagine like that she would come back? Did like, what's happening? Yeah.
Was the whole thing imaginary?
Oh God.
Did
was
Adam
it?
imagine the whole thing? That seems a little much.
That does seem a bit far-fetched, but maybe. Or was it all just the way it happened and Tessa was going to break up with him and not get in the car with Ben?
Right. I think that's the fourth thing,
Yeah.
But at what point, you've got the two people in the bed apparently fantasizing. Which one is doing the fantasizing? Which one is imagining the other fantasizing?
Good question.
I think that obviously it wants to be like, hey, this ending is open, whatever. But I don't think it wants it to be as open as it is.
Maybe.
I don't know. Pretty well acted in a low key sort of way. I mean, I can absolutely believe that there are douchebags like Ben out there. I'm sure I've met them.
Oh God.
But it's done in such a way that I actually wonder if he's a good actor or if that's just what he's like.
That's
a
fair question. Yeah, I think it's well acted enough. I think that this would have benefited from, I was going to say a better score, But I do like the use of noises, for lack of a better word. Like the audio design is interesting. Like during certain scenes, it has a frenetic quality to it that feels like it's building, and it made me feel very anxious. So I appreciate that. I kind of wish it had done more of that, kind of leaned into that more. And I wish we had some, I'm going to say better cinematography, and not because this didn't look good, but I just wish some more interesting shots.
Yeah. Camera placement is kind of a...
Yes.
And it's, you think to yourself, well, okay, they have a limited space. And you think, well, so did 12 Angry Men. So, you know.
Very true. And that's a brilliant film. So, yeah, no. So it does look good. So clearly the people making this film, Kit Zahar and other people working on this, they clearly know what they're doing. But yeah, I would have liked some more creativity in the camera placement, in the production design, in the score.
It's also a very sterile place to begin with. The walls are white. The refrigerator's white, you know, so... The actors are white, most of them. So,
yes, not her, though.
Yeah, not her. She said her mom, she's Asian. They didn't specify, but Kit Zahar is half Chinese, I guess. But he did say that. I was like, you don't even look Asian. I'm just like, this is your girlfriend you're talking to.
I know, right? Dumbass. Jesus. Yeah, as he's talking about how Adam has an Asian girl fetish, which he doesn't even know. He's just speculating.
Right. He hasn't even seen the woman he brought home.
Right.
But I wonder if the woman he brought home is imaginary, because she leaves and Tessa tries to talk to her. And then when Tessa goes back into the bedroom, Ben says, oh, did you see anybody out there? She's like, nah. And, you know.
I know. And I took it as she was just being kind because she didn't want to
Me too.
Like, oh, I saw her and she ran away. Like, but maybe. I don't know.
No, I think that seemed, unless the whole thing is in Adam's head.
I don't know. I know. I have so many questions about this film.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me like it more because I have so many questions.
Yeah, it had me kind of, I was definitely kind of watching it with, I wasn't white knuckling it in the sense that it was like, just fucking get it over with. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is gross. Cause for some reason, I just expected Adam to pull out a shard of broken glass and stab one of them in the throat or something.
1,000%. Yes. And I know 1,000% is not mathematically correct. I don't care. Yes. I totally expected that too. That's where I thought it was going. So I'm like, where is this movie going? Which I kind of like and respect that it didn't go to a completely unhinged place, even though that's where I wanted it to go to. But yeah, but it was, I don't do awkward humor. And not that this is awkward comedy per se, but the entire movie feels icky in the sense of like awkward and uncomfortable. And
I think that is part of the point.
Yeah. So it's very much adjacent to awkward comedy, like cringe comedy, which is so not my thing.
So
it's not usually my thing.
It's not your thing, or it is?
It's not usually my thing.
Oh, yeah. I don't love cringe. I mean, sometimes it's fine. But I tried to watch one episode of that Lisa Kudrow show on HBO. No, definitely
The
not.
Comeback? Oh, it's worth
Evan,
sticking
you
with.
love that.
Yeah, The Comeback's a great show. It's definitely worth sticking
with. That's cringe, awkward comedy, if I've ever seen it.
It is, but it also is making some really great commentary on showbiz. And Lisa Kudrow is great.
Well, okay.
Yeah, but no, but I hear you, Dave. I haven't seen the show, but I don't like, as a general rule, there are sometimes exceptions, but as a general rule, I don't like cringe. And this is very cringy.
Yeah.
But yet I did like it. Like I was intrigued by it. I was curious to where it was going to go.
I don't, it's like, yeah, I couldn't say that I enjoyed it, but it did hold my interest.
Sounds weird.
You know?
But it is weird, Evan, but not in a normal weird way.
Yeah.
As weird as that is.
It's not weird like, you know, like David Lynch is weird.
Right. There's no like alternate realities happening or surrealism going on. But yeah, but it's still weird nonetheless.
Yeah.
I do think it's an interesting exploration on boundaries. It's like what people are willing to put up with.
Yeah. And also, it moves for a movie that takes place in one location. It moves pretty well.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a short runtime too, so which is nice.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, is it good? I don't know. I was okay with watching it though. It was fine.
yeah,
But
sometimes things don't need to be good.
but not fine in my dismissive way. Fine, like,
Yeah.
it had some things going on. I'm not sure I understand them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I feel like this is a movie I'm going to be thinking about. Like, what did really happen?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you either of you think that I would like it, or do you feel like it's not my kind of movie?
Not an Evan movie.
I didn't think so, based on your description.
No. But then again, you never know. But yeah, I'm going to say no.
I remember reading the description for it online and thinking this definitely does not sound like my kind of movie. The press emails talking about, blending genres and being very uncomfortable and awkward. And I just thought, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I really wasn't on board to see this, and Dave wanted to see it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why the hell not? And I'm actually glad that I watched it. I will say that.
Write that down, listeners.
Yeah, I don't know how often that happens.
I know on June 7th this happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, but no, I am. I'm was pleasantly surprised by this. So I'm glad I watched it. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why I wanted to see it, by the way. I just remember kind of reading it, and I liked the still image that was in this.
It's a good still image. Yeah.
In the email, and I was just like,
mm-hmm.
And Adam decides he has to take the apartment back, and I was like, a weird dude. And I was like, okay, sure. There's something about this that's pushing my buttons,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will say I'm kind of surprised in a way that I wasn't more preemptively interested, because I do love power dynamics, and this definitely sounded like it was going to explore that, and it does kind of in a very interesting way, because usually when you think about power dynamics, it's usually, on a royal level or a leadership level or business level.
Yeah.
Not always in the kind of day-to-day, interactions. And so I like that. I like that it's a different approach. But yeah, anyway, glad I saw this. Dave, do you have any final thoughts?
It's like a less crazy version of Fair Play. A little bit.
Yes.
Or crazy in its own way.
Yes, but not with the sexual harassment. Yes.
Right, that's true.
Not the rape, not the sexual harassment, but yes, in the same vein, you're right. You are right about that. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Which is interesting. Yeah. So this is playing in theaters. Actually, it's playing in one theater, I should say, in New York City on June 7th, and then it will be streaming on Mubi on July 3rd. So let's talk about a movie we all saw. Let's talk about the documentary Jim Henson Idea Man, which is now streaming on Disney+. This premiered at Cannes just a couple of weeks ago. It's directed by Ron Howard, and it's all about Jim Henson, the puppeteer, the director, creator of the Muppets, worked on Sesame Street. Like, we could go on and on about his credits, and this features his children and the voice of his wife talking about him, as well as his collaborator and dear friend Frank Oz, as well as Rita Moreno and Jennifer Connelly. So let's give you the description of this. Do I have it? Actually, I don't think I do. Oh, geez.
Oh, no, you're going to have to go to IMDb.
I am going to have to go to IMDb. I know.
Not IMDb.
No. I know. I should have pulled it up on Disney+, but I didn't.
God.
Okay. So this is the IMDb description. The documentary will feature interviews of... Okay, that is not even remotely correct. I cannot read that. That is not correct in any way, shape, or form. So I'm actually not going to give you a description. I'd rather give no description than a wrong one.
Well, it's a documentary about Jim Henson's life.
Yes, it's about his life, and it chronicles his childhood, and it chronicles his early career and how he got into puppetry and creating the Muppets and being on Sesame Street, and as well as directing Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal. And it talks about his family relationships. So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, what did you think of this?
Well, I'm the target audience for this. As a lifelong Muppet fan, I've been looking forward to seeing this for a while, and I have to say it didn't disappoint.
It did or did not?
It did not disappoint.
Oh, okay.
There's, a decent amount that I know about Jim Henson as a person, but there was definitely some new things that I learned. I knew about his early career in television and how he was making these really outlandish commercials with his Muppets, and because he hated shooting the commercials, he would make these really violent, phrased commercials for products with his puppets.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I knew already, but was still fun to see and hear about. I didn't know as much about him as an experimental filmmaker, and seeing some of his weird experiments. And they were talking about he was making this nightclub with 20-something projectors and things. I didn't know about all that stuff. And I found that actually quite fascinating. And as both of you know, I'm not normally an experimental film person, but the clips I was seeing actually looked interesting to me and had a kind of pacing and rhythm to them that made me want to seek out some of that stuff. So I think in that way, this documentary was very successful in taking someone who I knew and loved already and made me more interested in him and his work and tracking him down non-Muppet related things like his experimental films and some of his earlier stuff. There's not a lot of the earlier things floating around, the Sam and Friends, that first kind of show that he did. There's only a handful of things that survived, unfortunately. But I enjoyed this quite a bit. But I'm also biased because I love the Muppets and I love Jim Henson. And it was just nice hearing people talk about working with him, talking about the kind of person he was. Although I was stressed out listening to how much he was working and how many things he was trying to juggle all at the same time. It sounded very, very stressful and not very easy for his family. And I was kind of thinking about this in the context of, remember when we watched that Stan Lee documentary and how frustrating it was that it didn't show anything negative, anything remotely negative about Stan Lee.
Yeah.
And although this movie doesn't go hard on him for his workaholic lifestyle and the fact that really distanced him from his family, it doesn't avoid it either.
Right.
And I respect that. I mean, also his kids are very heavily involved in this, so I wouldn't expect that they'd be there just bashing their father.
Well, especially also that he's their bread and butter. So
that's true.
Right. As talented as Brian Henson is, all of them work for the Jim Henson Foundation or for the, whatever. So I didn't mean to break in there like that, except it was to your point.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. So I think they were able to be honest about some of his shortcomings as a father without bashing him, but also without, whitewashing or glossing over, which can be very frustrating when you're watching a documentary, even about someone you respect, because, they're a human being. They're going to have faults, and foibles and flaws. And I feel like when a documentary just fails to address them, it's very frustrating, even when it's someone that you love.
Yeah, I had kind of forgotten about the Stan Lee documentary, but I do remember now just being like, oh, come on. Especially when there was that book that came out at roughly the same time that was like, he's an asshole.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't expect a documentary to be like, this person is an asshole. But at the same time, it'd be nice if they at least didn't ignore, criticisms or issues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think the title Idea Man is appropriate given all of the different aspects of his career that are discussed and how his creative mind was always moving. And he always felt like he never had enough time to get all of his ideas out. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that he did The Muppet Show, which was a wildly successful show, and he canceled his own show after 5 seasons and said, nope, I got to move on and do something else. I can't rest on my laurels. Even though he'd already done Sesame Street, which was wildly successful at that point, he did The Muppet Show. I thought it was interesting that no one wanted the Muppet Show. They all thought it was just not gonna work and not gonna play to adults. So I enjoyed hearing about how wrong everyone else was about that. As happened throughout his career when they talk about Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and how those movies were panned at the time and he did poorly at the box office. And, the three of us know them well as cult classics that people enjoy and think are weird, kooky, creative movies.
They're definitely weird.
Yeah. I fucking love both of them, and I did at the time. But
I don't remember the Dark Crystal at all.
The Dark Crystal is amazing and it's phenomenal.
Except that
and
it's
I love
gross.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I love the Dark Crystal.
I've thought about watching it a lot, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to see the E.T. dressed as a woman, and I don't know if I want to see those vulture things.
The Skeksis.
Yeah,
they're creepy. They're so amazing. It's such a beautiful film, though. And it is creepy and scary and gross and beautiful and wonderful. All the things. And I love it.
Okay.
I would say you should see it.
Okay.
Yes, definitely worth watching. That's for sure.
Right,
yes.
I'll put it in.
And Labyrinth is great, too. I don't love it as much as Dark Crystal, but it's still great, too. Love them both.
It is. Yeah, they're kooky and creative and weird, and I don't know. They're fun.
Well, I remember I saw Labyrinth because even at 11 years old or however old I was like, David Bowie's in this.
Yeah, and he's amazing in it. He's given the performance of his life.
Because the first thing I ever remember of David Bowie was Blue Jean, which is a great song on an otherwise very pedestrian album, and then got into his other stuff at a really young age, which I don't know, seems strange to me now. But so that's why I wanted to see Labyrinth.
Good choice.
And you're right, he is great.
He is. He's amazing.
I just remember the scene where she's like, "That's not fair," and he's like, oh, "You say that an awful lot." It's like, yeah, she does, doesn't she?
Because that's what you do when you're a teenager or tween, when you're at that stage, you think everything's unfair because it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also liked that the documentary showed the behind the scenes moments, both when they would goof around as the characters, which is always a lot of fun to see them being silly and lewd sometimes as the different Muppets. Yeah. And also seeing how the sausage is made, like when they show him explaining, okay, we got the monitor here and we're on this side of the side of the wall and we're basically all kind of working together and watching the monitor to see what's happening on the other side of the wall. I thought that was all cool. And when Frank Oz was stuffed under that couch because he had to play Miss Piggy sitting next to Roger Moore, I thought that was all very entertaining. Yeah. So anyway, what did you both think of it?
Go ahead, Megan.
So I adored this. I absolutely loved seeing this film, and this should come as no surprise. For those of you who don't know, Evan sat next to me when we were watching the Mr. Rogers documentary when it premiered in Boston, and Evan just kept like shoveling tissues to me because I was sobbing uncontrollably. I was not sobbing uncontrollably during this film, but the last 5 minutes got me. In the feels. Me too. It was good. I really liked this, and also I am biased too because I love the Muppets. Clearly I was just gushing about the Dark Crystal, and I love Labyrinth, and I love Sesame Street. So for all those reasons, and I find Jim Henson very fascinating as a creator, as an artist, as a puppeteer, as a director, kind of all the hats that he wore. I will say I didn't learn anything new, and I don't know I know part of it was in Street Gang, the Sesame Street documentary, where they cover a lot of the inception of Muppets and how Jim Henson came to work on Sesame Street. So a lot of that I already knew from that documentary. And I clearly have seen another Jim Henson documentary or Muppets documentary because a lot of the stuff, I agree with you, Evan. I like the behind the scenes too. But a lot of that I already knew and I'd already seen before. I'm not entirely sure where, but none of it was new or surprising. Like I knew he was a workaholic. I knew he was vacillating between flying to London, doing the Muppet Show, as well as coming back to do Sesame Street. I knew all his kids worked with him and for the foundation. I knew how the Muppets were crafted. But you know what? I was so engaged. I didn't care. I didn't care that I already knew this information. I liked the way all of it was presented. I think it was done in an engaging way. Would I have liked to have learned more? Sure, but that's okay. A lot of people don't know all the things, and even if you know the things, it's cool to see the visuals of it, like to see, hey, this is the monitor, and hey, I have to get as you said about Frank Oz, I have to get inside this couch, and and hey, every time we're doing the Muppet Show, we're doing it on a platform, so we can maneuver the Muppets while the one live guest star is there with them. So I liked all of it on a very emotional level as well as an artistic level. And I loved hearing about kind of his philosophy about life, about how he was like, if we were just kinder to each other, and how he wanted to do so many things, and he was always worried about running out of time, which feels very relevant. And there's never enough time to do all the things you want. And yeah, and that he wanted to make the world a better place, and he wanted to be weird and creative. And yeah, so I dug all of that. So I really enjoyed this as well. And perhaps I'm biased about this too. I don't give a shit. I liked it. So Dave, what did you think?
Oh, fuck me. Well, no, I think it's fine. I am not Muppet or Jim Henson super fan the way Evan is, or you apparently, Megan. I don't think I knew that. My image of you is totally blown. No, sorry. Had to dig into my Bender, catchphrase. That's not a catchphrase. So I was most interested in, like Evan had said earlier, how the sausage is made. I knew a lot of this stuff. I knew about the early TV stuff. I knew that he did commercials. I didn't know that the commercials always ended in violence.
Yeah.
Which is actually really funny.
Yeah.
A lot of it. Because I remember thinking to myself, it's like, wait a minute, you're trying to hawk this product and you're smashing it over somebody's head? I mean, okay.
Yeah. They talk about that on Street Gang, because that's why it was like so weird that they wanted him on Sesame Street, because he was doing these like really violent things.
Yeah.
Like his commercials and shows. Yeah.
But I was really interested in, it never occurred to me how they captured the voices of the performers. And they're just, I'm sure I must have known this, but maybe I forgot that they wore microphones, and like, well, of course. And then I was thinking, well, wait a minute. Well, could you hear Jim Henson as Kermit the Frog while you were interacting with him? Or were you wearing an earpiece because he was like down below the floor? Like, they didn't explain how that worked. That would have been interesting. And I also knew about his experimental filmmaking. I hadn't seen any of the footage before of, what was the one? Was it called Time? I don't know what it was called.
Timepiece?
Timepiece. It looked kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
It's only like 9 minutes long. So, hey, maybe it's worth checking out. Yeah, like I say, I was more interested in learning about how his mind worked. And you sort of get that. Because he was definitely, he wasn't like a weird dude, but his mind worked in strange ways,
Yeah.
To think up the characters in the Dark Crystal, it's kind of like, what kind of fucking nightmares did you have, dude? Jesus. Even the two heroes look fucking weird in that movie. And it kind of makes perfect sense to me. Labyrinth makes perfect sense to me, although I don't think he wrote that, right? Wasn't that largely Terry Jones and a few other people who are uncredited? I think that's true. Terry Jones from Monty Python.
Yep. Yeah. He wrote the story with Dennis Lee, but yes, Terry Jones wrote the screenplay.
And, but I was interested in his sort of, I don't know if gentle's the right word, but his just not confrontational, must have been nice to go to a job and like work your ass off and not worry that your boss was going to yell at you and still enjoy your job.
Well, that was the thing. Like, everybody talked about how it was such a pleasure to be there, and you're there with the best creative minds, and how Jim Henson nurtured them. And I love Frank Oz's story about the Dark Crystal. And he's like, yeah, the way I became the co-director was Jim Henson was like, hey, do you want to direct this with me? I think you should direct this with me. Like, and just like such like the the loveliest, kindest, most supportive way.
Well, and then the answer is, well, why do you want me to direct it with you? Oh, because that'll make it better. And this is what a great answer,
Yes, it's so lovely.
Yeah, it sounded like they had such a great relationship, but it was interesting that he met Frank Oz when he was only 17, and he wanted him to come, but he was too young. He had to go finish high school.
I love that.
It makes sense too when he said, at first I think, our relationship was that I kind of treated him like a father figure, and that wasn't entirely fair to him. And then, as I got older, kind of like aged into a more appropriate relationship, was kind of like brothers.
Yeah.
And I like how they were, I do like how they originally were the opposite of Bert and Ernie, and then they swapped because it was more fitting to their personalities. I thought that was cute.
I also was interested to learn, I always knew that Ernie had somebody else working his right arm, but I never knew how it worked. I'm sure that they got it down in sync at some point, but I wonder if they were starting out like, you're operating a puppet's right arm, but not his voice and not his left arm. The fuck? How does that work? And it worked, I still do love Kermit the Frog, though. I've always loved Kermit. So
Kermit's great.
I know.
Yeah.
It is great. I know. And
Kermit.
And of course, I got all choked up when I hear Rainbow Connection.
Yeah. Evan, what's the name of the guy who has the Boomerang Fish Act? Do you know?
Oh, what is that guy's name?
I don't know.
Oh,
but it's the only thing that he does.
Yeah. And I also over the weekend saw the Muppet movie because they re-released it. And he's in it. The fish guy. I think he's like asking Kermit if he could throw fish in the screening room. And he's like, no, we discussed this. You cannot do that in here. And you cannot do that. I can't think of that guy's name for the life of me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so it I don't know. I think I wanted more like, and this is not what this documentary is, but I think I wanted more of like the technical stuff just because it is fascinating. Because I've been on, I wouldn't say lots of movie sets, but I've been on movie set. I mean, I know how movies are made from top to bottom. So to see something that is, has such a completely different and very difficult technical angle to it.
Yeah.
I would have really liked to have seen that more because you get the explanations like, well, the Muppet Show is shot, all the sets were raised because, well, no shit. But I mean, more of the Roger Moore, Miss Piggy on the couch stuff, I guess is what I was looking for, and just how Frank Oz says he's like, yeah, the best shot is, of course, the most uncomfortable one, So,
yeah. Or the fact that, they're talking about how using the because I think it's so fascinating. The fact that they are watching their performance, while their arms are outstretched and they're maneuvering the Muppet, and then talking about like, not only are you performing in real time, but you're also framing and editing in real time too, because you're watching your performance. That's a fascinating concept.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure once you got it down, it was second nature, but I cannot imagine even being a gifted puppeteer, like learning how to do that.
Yeah. It must be strange, not unlike when you in broadcast, you're the weather person and you have to get used to gesturing at a green screen or blue screen behind you and you're looking in the monitor. It's not easy.
Yeah. And also you're looking in the monitor, but trying to make it look like you're looking at the camera.
Yes.
That's what is always, having worked in a lot of news stations. That's why Peter Jennings was the best, because he looked at the camera, because he ad-libbed everything. So, I mean, it's not, he didn't ad-lib everything. He had a script, and you would always see him in commercial breaks crossing out lines and rewriting. And then he would just do it. I mean, I don't want to bring up September 11th, but I'll bring up September 11th. That's how he was able to do 11 hours in a row.
Wow.
Damn.
It's hard work. So, I mean, and I'm getting into that because, like Evan said, learning how to do that thing, I would have loved to have known what Frank Oz thought the first time he had his hand up a puppet's butt,
or hearing from the new puppeteers who came in that Jim Henson was training. Yeah. I mean, you hear like a snippet, but I know what you're saying. It would have been nice to hear more.
And I saw the Big Bird documentary, so the terrible Big Bird documentary.
Oh, is it terrible?
The Carol Spinney documentary?
Yeah.
It's unwatchable. It's like,
no.
I mean, you get to learn exactly how he did Big Bird,
Mhm.
which seems really physically taxing.
Absolutely.
Like in a way that's like, I respect you just for getting into that suit for 10 hours a day. You could have done nothing else but get in that suit and not perform. It'd be like, buy that man a frosty beverage, you know?
Well, Frank Oz said he wasn't going to get into the suit again after one time. So there you go. Kudos to Carol Spinney for that.
But the whole thing feels like it's like elegiac. It's very strange. So anyway, the whole thing has like, it's got like funeral music, like the entire score. It feels like you're like about to watch them wheel in a corpse. So anyway,
Jesus. Okay.
And Carol Spinney's alive. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was like,
he
was
was
alive
at the time.
Yeah, right.
Right,
no,
at the
when
time.
it came out. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't really have much more to say except, yeah, it was, that stuff was more fascinating. I would have liked just more stuff about, I don't know how they could have done this. The idea that his mother was a Christian Scientist and he was not, yet he still didn't like to go to doctors. I mean, not as a first thing, but then he died of this horrible bacterial infection. So, which I remember when he died, just being like, what the fuck? Jim Henson died? He couldn't have been old, that too. You know?
Right.
No, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because it must be hard even if you don't believe in the things that you were raised to believe. Sometimes it's hard to shake those things.
Sure.
Shake those, trappings, those teachings. I also would have liked more on, but again, this is not about Jim Henson per se. I would have liked more on his wife because the fact that and this I did not know. I knew she was involved. Like I knew they worked together, but I didn't know how involved. Like I didn't know she co-founded the company with him and that and it's funny, like as we're learning more about him, I'm like, is she totally chill being at home with babies while he's off living the dream, his dream? Like maybe that was her dream too, or maybe not. But then to find out that like when he would come home at the end of the day, she'd want to talk about the business and he'd be like, I want nothing to do with that. I just want to talk about the kids. Like it's so fascinating to me. And so the fact that she was a gifted puppeteer, the fact that she was the one who was recruiting new Muppeteers, like I think that is fascinating. I would have loved to have learned more about her.
Yeah. But it's not called Jane Henson, Idea Woman.
I know. But I'm just saying, now it made me want to learn more about her because I'm like, she sounds fascinating. And like the kids were talking about how she's an anarchist. And I'm like, wait, what? I want to know everything now.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, if you think about the stuff that Jim Henson was doing, for example, I'm taking your money, but I'm having your, my Muppets like destroy your product and hit other people with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all kind of is of a piece, I think.
Very much so.
True. Oh, so Dave, to answer your question, the character, his name is Lou Zealand, like New Zealand, but with an L.
I remember I didn't know his last name, but now I remember Lou. But the Boomerang Fish Act. Oh yeah. And who was the guy who always blew things up? Was
Crazy something.
Yeah. It wasn't just the commercials, Jim. There was a lot of violence later too.
Crazy Harry is the guy who's always blowing things up.
Crazy Harry. And I loved that my favorite Muppet thing ever, Animal accompanying Rita Moreno during Fever, is like featured in that documentary. Because I just remember as a kid, and I don't think I had a drum kit yet because I was probably 5 or so or 6 when I saw that, but I was already like hitting things in time, I might add. And seeing Animal, who I loved, do those huge inappropriate fills after she would finish her line. Oh God, that's one of the best things I've ever seen in my life still. So
I mean, especially knowing that she was dying laughing and couldn't keep it together that entire time.
I know.
Made it that much better.
I love Jim told me, this is England. We don't do overtime. So if you laugh again, that's what's going in the show.
Yeah, no, that was great. I love that one of my favorite Sesame Street moments was there when Kermit is counting with the little girl and she keeps saying Cookie Monster. And then he's like, oh, well, you should have had Cookie Monster do this. I'm leaving. And then she's like, I love you. And then he comes back. And I love that because that was ad-libbed because he didn't know, like they didn't know what the kids were going to say because the kids weren't scripted. So
Right.
I love that they would just ad lib and they would just roll with it. Like the level of talent that they had to come up with these characters, voice these characters, react in time as the characters, be funny, be silly, educating, doing puppetry. Like it's unbelievable to me. Like the artistry and creativity is just amazing.
I do have one specific complaint.
Uh-oh.
No
Ooh.
discussion of Menomina.
They do show Phenomenon, but yes, no discussion of its weird origins.
Yeah, and the fact that they did it 3 times, and you can actually see the original one on YouTube somewhere.
Yes,
I've seen
you
it.
can.
And they got better every time, though. That third one, I just love that. And then the drums, when he runs up back, in frame. Joy. Even though he kind of just looks like Floyd, but that's all right.
Yes, he does look like Floyd and sounds like Dr. Teeth.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
I thought you were going to talk about how you were mad that they didn't talk about its like sex story origins, like its porn origins or like lesbian erotica or whatever it was.
Nope. Just Menomina.
It's just a phenomena in and of itself.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I have a child who never stops making noise, so I think about Menomina. Ted just is never quiet unless he's asleep. So, and right now what he does is just any melody he hears, he'll just hum it all day. And even somebody like me who loves melody and harmony and always has a song playing in his head, it's like, dude, Ted, you got to cut me a break, man. So anyway, so that's all I have to say about Ted and the Muppets and Jim Henson and Rita Moreno and all that stuff.
All right, Evan, do you have any final thoughts?
Just that it was nice going to see the Muppet movie in the theater and then watching this documentary. I think it was a day later. Although it was kind of sad because the clips from the Muppet movie in the documentary were sharp and clear, unlike in the movie theater. It looked kind of blurry and grainy. I was surprised. Wow, the documentary has got sharper clips from the Muppet movie. Should have watched it at home, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was nice going to the theater and seeing it on the big screen.
Nice. All right. Well, let's do a recap. So this Closeness, as I said earlier, is playing in New York City in a theater. It's going to open in more cities, and it will be streaming on Mubi July 7th. Dave, would you recommend it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, this is a weird one. I think you're as we often say, your mileage may vary, but I think it's worth checking out. It's weird in such an interesting way. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And there's a lot to think about there. And then Jim Henson Idea Man is streaming on Disney Plus now. I think I know what everyone's going to say, but would you guys recommend it?
Yes.
I think if you're a Muppet person, this is definitely something for you.
Yeah, I would recommend it too. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say, even if you're not a Muppet person, because if you're interested in artistry or filmmaking or TV at all, like the behind the scenes, I think it's a fascinating depiction of an artist. So I agree with you both, but I also think it's interesting just kind of in that look too at an artist's life. Yeah, I think it's fascinating.
That's true.
Yeah, thanks. So we want to give a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound great week after week.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us all over the place on social media. We're at Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, not Blue Sky. Got to get on Blue Sky. Anyway, we're all over the place. Come say hello, follow us. Then you know when new episodes come out. And you can chat with us. Let us know what you think about these movies. And we love hearing from you. You can also email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call.
862-21-PEACE.
Let us know what you think of these and let us know, what's your favorite Muppet movie? Who's your favorite Muppet character or Sesame Street? Do you love The Dark Crystal as much as Evan and I do? Do you love Labyrinth? We want to know. We want to know it all.
Yes. Are you a Muppet of a man like I am? Or are you a manly Muppet?
These are great questions. Also, sidebar, I just realized something when Frank Oz was talking about Miss Piggy and how she has so much bravado because she doesn't know she doesn't have talent. I don't buy that. I think she thinks she's talented, but I digress. But let us know what you think. If you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That really helps us get the word out. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. It will take you to your preferred platform of choice. You can also rate us directly on Apple Podcasts, which helps us out a lot, or on Spotify. And if you really, really like the show, consider joining our Patreon. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes. This week, we talked about Spike Lee's Crooklyn. You also get to vote in monthly polls. And yeah, it's a fun time over on Patreon. So if you're not a patron, consider joining. And if you are already a patron, thank you so much. And also, we have merch. And you can get our merch at our website, spoilerpiece.com, and it'll take you to our TeePublic store. And we have all kinds of goodies, t-shirts, notebooks, hoodies, pillows, mugs, magnets, you name it. So my name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at OpinionS World or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on all the socials that I'm on, which is several, as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. And you can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy Pride, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Bye.